Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another World of Warcraft Classic Guide. My name is Kargoz, and if you couldn't tell, I am very excited to present for your viewing pleasure a comprehensive Shaman Leveling Guide for World of Warcraft 1.12 or 1.13. I'm not sure what to call it anymore. Anyways, let's get into it. So in this guide, I'm going to start off by sharing my general impressions of Shaman Leveling, talk about some of the pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses. Then we're going to move into talents. I'm going to present a couple different build options for you to consider. Shamans are a hybrid class, so at the end of the day, depending on what your goals are for the game, if you just want to speed level as hyper efficiently as possible, I got you covered there. If you want to do some more healing, or even if you want to tank, yes, Shaman Tanking. We're going to talk about Shaman Tanking. It's going to be juicy, guys. It's not the most optimal thing in the world, but is it something you can do, and is it something that can be effective? Yes, so we will talk about that. We're also going to talk about rotation. We're going to talk about how that rotation is going to vary throughout different stages of the game, from 1 to 10, 10 to 20, so on and so forth. We're going to unpack some of the nuances and tips and tricks around the rotation. We'll cover both enhancement and elemental. I've also included weapon progression for both two-handed weapons. That's going to include two-handed maces, two-handed axes, staves, as well as one-handed weapon progression and shield progression. So that's going to be on the latter slides. Again, guys, take everything I'm going to share with you with a grain of salt. So this is just my attempt to put the pieces together. This is a living document, so please check the comment section below, as well as the video description. There's going to be a link out to the presentation itself, so you can follow along with me at your own pace on the presentation, or you can just listen in to the video. So either way, guys, I'm super excited. Let's get into it. Before we begin, I have to shout out my fellow collaborators on this project. Without these dudes, this guide would definitely not exist. I am not some elite shaman myself, so I had to rely heavily on these guys' expertise. We got Pesh, we got Egregious, we got Cabe, and the amazing Melderon. Melderon is a scientist by profession, and some of his videos, which I used as a resource in this guide, were incredibly valuable. We will get into that later. But also Taladril's Theory Crafting Discord. Thank you so much to everybody who contributed some valuable information to this guide. Alright, so class overview, general impressions. Shamans are strong tier 2 levelers. They have access to some really nice leveling amenities. They have stuff like high mobility through Ghost Wolf. That's going to give them a 40% movement speed increase. From the level 20 to 30 bracket, they will be moving around faster than anybody on all of Azeroth. Even hunters with improved Cheetah will only be at 36%, so the 40% is quite nice. They also have excellent group utility. They got a totem and a half for just about every possible situation. They have a second Hearthstone in the form of Ancestral Recall and a 15-minute cooldown. They have the ability to reincarnate and come back to life after they die. And mainly, this is something that is, kind of really slept on a lot, and I'm going to tell you a little story about this. They have the ability to kite mobs around pretty much indefinitely, mana permitting. And there's a technique that I call Earthbind Kiting that we will get into now. So, let me tell you a little story. I've been doing these class leveling guides, right, for a bunch of weeks and months now, and right after I finished the warrior one, I was in the shower, I was singing in the shower, and I was just thinking to myself, some of my ideas come to me in the bathroom, I don't know why, but I was thinking to myself, why don't shamans use the hamstring method, like the same method that warriors use to trade one hit for one hit with mobs? Why don't shamans use Earthbind Totem to kite stuff around and trade one hit for one hit in the same vein? And I started researching it. I started looking up all the different shaman guides and talking to people, and no one was talking about this. It was so bizarre to me. And the whole meta around shaman leveling was based around a fast one-hander like a dagger, and Wind Fury or Flame Tongue, and a shield. And for the life of me, I just couldn't find anything about this. So I started testing it on the PTR. I started going out and doing my own little experiments, and I found it to be highly, highly, highly effective. And that is going to be our go-to technique in this guide, Earthbind Kiting. So essentially what it is it's this. Mobs out in the open world generally have a faster movement speed than you. They also have a faster attack speed than you. So by applying a slow like an Earthbind or a hamstring and then weaving in and out of range of the mob's hitbox, you're effectively negating both of those advantages, and you're trading one hit for one hit with that mob. And if you have a really slow weapon and your mob is attacking really fast, that's where you get the super nutty value out of this. So that's what we're going to be doing. So in a group setting, shamans can heal, they can DPS, and they can also tank. Yep, they can tank. It is not the most ideal setup, I would say, but it is definitely doable. They have some actual advantages over some other tanks, but yeah, we will more on that later. So strengths and weaknesses. Some of the strengths of Shaman Leveling, again, pretty quick tier 2 leveling speed. They have high burst damage. Elemental damage is absolutely nutty. Also, if you're rocking out Wind Fury or something, you have access to kind of erratic high burst damage. You have amazing group utility. They have flexible talents, high mobility through Ghost Wolf. They have that Hearthstone, the Ancestral Recall. They got self-healing. They're excellent at kiting. They're able to kill elites that are way stronger than them, just chipping away at them with Searing Totem and just kiting them around indefinitely. They're also just a very disruptive class, so in PvP against other classes, they can really throw like a spanner in the works, so to speak. They have on a 6-second cooldown, they have an interrupt, they have, they have Tremor Totem, they have all these tools that allow them to just mess up the flow of combat for their opponents. They can also tank DPS or heal. Some of the weaknesses, though, so the main weakness that right off the bat comes to mind is just a blaring sort of weakness with Shaman, is their constant mana management. Managing mana and finding a harmonious balance between spending resources and regenerating resources per spirit-based mana regeneration per the 5-second rule is going to be like the crux of your finesse with a Shaman. If you just dump all of your abilities, yeah, you're going to kill something super quick, right? But then you're going to be out of mana and you're going to be drinking and you're going to be leveling like a pleb. So finding that balance, that equilibrium between spending resources and regenerating them is going to be absolutely key. And that ties into the high skill cap. There's also a ton of binds you're going to need as a Shaman. You're probably going to have to bind Control 1 through 5, Alt 1 through 5, Shift 1 through 5. You're going to have to bind F1 through F5. A lot of stuff that you want to have on key binds. But yeah, when you factor in that mana management and you have to kind of tailor your rotation around finding that balance, you will slow down your single target kill speed. And their single target kill speed is kind of tier 2 in my mind. You don't really cleave through stuff as fast and efficiently as maybe a hunter or something like that. Also, they struggle versus multiple targets. They have kind of just a medium gear dependence. They have no hard taunt, which affects them as tanks, and they have no hard crowd control like a polymorph or something like that. So general leveling tips. I'm not going to talk about this too long. You hear me yammer about this in every guide. This is stuff that it pertains to every class in the game. The first thing is just kill mobs with the best XP to time. Front load your spells and abilities. This is so important on a Shaman. You don't want to stagger your abilities throughout the fight. Resist the urge to refresh Lightning Shield halfway through and stop that spirit-based mana regeneration. Push the limits of your combat efficiency. Keep everything on cooldown, constantly regenerating. You never want to be at full resources. You always want to be regenerating stuff on cooldown, and that ties into the last point. Be adaptive with your damage rotation cycle. You don't want to overkill stuff. You don't want to flame shock something if it has 5% HP. Get full value out of your spells and abilities, and think on your feet. Don't just accept one rotation at face value. Leveling speed equation. So your leveling speed is a sum total of 3 factors. That's going to be in combat time. That's time where you're actively engaging targets and killing them. Out of combat time, this is time where you're forced to regenerate either through healing or eating or drinking or bandaging or whatever. And the third thing is travel time. This is the time moving from objective A to objective B. So if you're dealing with speed, if that's your key performance indicator, and you're shaving off seconds and minutes and hours, shaving off seconds, minutes, and hours from any one of these 3 categories should be held equally, right? So a penny saved is a penny earned. If you can save 5 seconds of out-of-combat time, that's going to be superior to 2 seconds of in-combat time. Here are some charts showing you the percent XP gain for mobs that are higher level, lower level, of the same level, all the way to 60. Now we're going to talk about Shaman Race. So here's the Shaman stat modifier, +1 strength, +1 stamina, +1 intellect, +2 spirit. We're going to talk about Bis Shaman Races for both PvE and PvP. So as you can see, there's some slight variations in the primary base stats here. Nothing to write home to mom about. So for PvE, enhancement is going to be Orc. So the reason why is that you have the attack power, on-demand burst cooldown with Blood Fury that'll help you throughout every stage of the game. You have the 25% resistance to stuns. That's not going to be super impactful in PvE, but the main thing is the +5 axe specialization. It's going to help you against glancing blows and just increase your DPS significantly. So Restoration and Elemental, the only racial that really ties to casting and pertains directly is going to be Trolls Berserking. That's between a 10% and 30% haste buff. So for PvE, Trolls are going to undoubtedly be Bis there. For PvP, it's really close between Orc and Tauren. It's kind of up to you. I'd say the only one where you have a little bit more of an edge with Orc would be Enhancement, but for the reasons we mentioned above. But for Restoration and Elemental, Taurens are very nice. The increased health is always great, especially on a Shaman. And there is kind of a unique interaction between War Stomp and Totems, and a lot of people were sort of advocating for that, saying that the Torn War Stomp is really, really good with your totems and just how your totems interact with the stun. Also, the Shaman Trinket in PvP removes stuns. So some people were saying it's kind of a redundant thing to have the 25% chance to resist stuns. But anyway, moving on. Useful add-ons, a swing timer. Every melee class in the game should have a swing timer, but because we're going to be Earthbind Kiting, I can't stress the importance of a swing timer. If you're going to download one thing on this list, download the swing timer. It is so, so important just to have good mechanics in the game. You really need a swing timer that tracks both your swing and your enemy's swing. The next things are kind of quality of life. Totem module, it's going to help you place your totems down. It's going to have a totem timer, and chamois buff's kind of the same thing for helping you track your lightning shield charges and weapon buffs, because 5 minutes is not a long time, guys. The next thing is an XP per hour tracker for obvious reasons, and then outfitter. Outfitter's pretty good because you're going to be toggling to different pieces of gear a lot, you know, switching to spirit pieces if you want to reduce your out of combat time, swapping into heal sets, or maybe even some tanking pieces. So those are some good add-ons. Swing timer add-ons. So I referenced this, just a little more color on what swing timer add-ons are. They are, you can see it down in the bottom right. That's Samuel swing timer. You can see it. So it offers you a visual way to track the natural flow of your auto attacks. So in this little example picture, you can see that this orc just smacked the Planestrider with the staff, right? So he just swung, and now the swing timer is starting to build back up again. And once it reaches full, that means your swing has reset and you're getting ready to swing again. So it's really, really important, and it's going to allow you to not miss damage. You can kite mobs around and trade one hit for one hit, but you have theoretically 0% damage reduction. You don't lose any damage because you're still getting every single auto attack in. So now we'll extrapolate a little bit on Earthbind Kiting. So from level 6 onwards, you can start Earthbind Kiting. That's when you get Earthbind Totem. So even at level 6, Earthbind Totem slows for a whopping 50%. This is equivalent to rank 3 hamstring that warriors get at level 54, because the base hamstring is 40%. So this is a massive slow. It costs very little, 6% of base mana, and it is so freaking good, guys. I mean, let me just show you, let me just give you some examples. Like, you may be thinking to yourself, why would I Earthbind Kite? I'll just face tank a little damage, it's fine, I'll just heal right after, you know, I'll just drink, and, you know, I don't feel like getting carpal tunnel syndrome, I don't feel like using all this mental energy to kill mobs. That's fair, but let me just explain why it's so good to potentially Earthbind Kite. So let's use an extreme example. Let's say that you have a weapon that's 3.8 attack speed. That's pretty slow, right? And you're killing a mob that has 2.0 attack speed. That's pretty quick, right? But in this situation, if you're just going to stand there and face tank a mob's damage and just trade back and forth, that mob is going to basically attack you twice while you're attacking it only one time, right? Because it has like half your attack speed. So if you were to Earthbind Kite this mob and trade one hit for one hit, you're looking at a 47.4% damage reduction. Can you imagine walking around the world with a buff that says you take 47.4% less damage? How nutter butters would that be? And let's use a more like realistic example. Let's say you have you're attacking a mob that has 2.4 attack speed, right? Pretty average, pretty low actually. And then you are going to have a 3.6 weapon, pretty average, right? You're still looking at a 33.3% damage reduction. That's crazy. That is so crazy. So, you know, that's going to really, really move the needle significantly. Now, so how do you do it? How do you Earthbind Kite? So you're going to, you know, buff yourself up, put your weapon buff up, you know, put your lightning shield up, set up your totems, and then you're going to pull. You can pull with a lightning bolt into a flame shock or just a flame shock, whatever floats your boat. So the mob's going to run over and it's going to get afflicted by your Earthbind totem. So what you're going to do is you're going to melee the mob. Then right after you connect with your attack, you're going to kind of side strafe through the mob out of range of its hitbox. And ideally, you want to do so in a way where your back is not exposed to the mob, because if your back is exposed to a mob, you're susceptible to the daze mechanic. So that's why you want to kind of side strafe through the mob and just trade one hit for one hit. So again, mobs out in the open world generally have higher movement speed than you, so they can catch you if you're running away, and they have higher or lower attack speed. They have faster attack speed, right? So by doing this, you're negating both of those advantages they have over you, right? So really, really good. Definitely do it. Earthbind Kiting, do that. That is the most important thing to learn from this guide. Start attack macros. This is going to be important to bake these into your abilities. We're not sure how macros are going to work in Classic quite yet, but you know, you should have the ability. Hopefully they just have /start attack and you can just bake that into your abilities, but it's going to prevent you from missing damage. So let's say I want to Stormstrike, right? But I don't have mana. if I don't have a start attack macro built in, then I'm going to hit Stormstrike, and I'm just going to be standing there like a numbnuts. I'm not going to be attacking it. I would have to manually right-click the mob and start attacking it. So just baking this into your abilities means that even if you don't have the resources to use the ability, you're still at least going to be auto-attacking it and not missing damage. Alright, combat efficiency. This is where it gets really juicy, guys. So if you're just half awake right now, sit up. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Wash your face. Do whatever you got to do. Come back and listen to this. So I'm going to talk about combat efficiency through the different damage setups you have as a shaman. The most efficient damage setup is a slow two-hander with Rockbiter. A slow two-hander with Rockbiter. Yes, not Wind Fury, with Rockbiter. And this is for a bunch of reasons. So the first thing I'll say compared to Wind Fury is that Wind Fury, you have the potential to overkill the mob. You have the potential to drastically overkill the mob. You don't know when it's going to proc. You don't know if it's going to proc. You could fight a mob and it would never proc. And you're sitting there and you potentially die or take way too much damage or whatever it is. So for multiple reasons, and also Rockbiter scales really well with slow weapons. It's going to be easier to do Earthbind Kiting with a slow weapon as well. But anyway, we're gonna show some data that supports this, right? The math will support this. Melderon was kind enough. He had some really good shaman guides, which I will link to, where he's looking at p-values and alpha thresholds, and he's testing these. He's testing Wind Fury, he's testing Rockbiter on slow two-handers, and we'll show some of those results in a second. But anyway, so the most efficient damage setup you have is with a slow two-hander and Rockbiter. You have access to the Earthbind Kiting method, so a slower weapon is going to be better there. It's going to give you less margin for error. If you have a fast weapon, you can kind of Rockbite, you can kind of Earthbind Kite, but you're going to have like a tighter strafing window kind of, and you have more of an ability to make a misplay. Also, you're going to get more value out of Stormstrike, because Stormstrike gives you that instant second attack regardless of your weapon speed. So the slower the weapon, the better. You have better value out of parry. So you have, when it comes to your parry hasted attack, so if you're a defender, right, and you parry an attack, your next attack is a parry hasted attack. It reduces the swing timer a lot, and it scales better with slow weapons. Also, the weapon progression for these slow two-handers is pretty established, and you know what to look for there. And because we're doing Earthbind Kiting, we're going to spend less gold potentially on consumables like water and food and stuff. So those are the advantages that come to mind. The second most efficient damage setup you have, believe it or not, is Elemental 40+. The single target kill speed is absolutely insane, but the main disadvantage, and this is a very big disadvantage, is that you can't mitigate damage through Earthbind Kiting. You don't have that buff that says reduce damage by 33%. So that's why it's not nearly as efficient overall in my mind. The single target kill speed is crazy though, and then if you do slash sit, if you do slash sit against mobs, and you proc Eye of the Storm, you have 100% resistance to pushback. It is so good, and this is factoring in drinking time too, guys. So we're gonna look at some of the data that Melderon was able to produce. But even with the drinking time factored in, it was faster than the majority of stuff. It was faster than everything, really. And the only reason why slow two-handed with Rockbiter is going to be better is that you have that damage mitigation. Alright, so the third most efficient is fast one-hander with the shield and Wind Fury. Now this seems kind of counterintuitive, right? You may be thinking Flame Tongue has got to be best, right? You know, fast weapon, you're attacking a lot, you're going to get better value out of Flame Tongue. I always thought Wind Fury is better with slow weapons, right? Because you're doubling up a slow attack. The math doesn't support that. The math supports Wind Fury excelling more when you have more opportunities to proc Wind Fury, so with a fast weapon. So a fast one-hander with a shield and Wind Fury is going to be your best damage mitigation option if you do decide that you're going to face tank the mob and you're not going to Earthbind Kite. You're not going to Earthbind Kite, then this is probably going to be your go-to. It's less APM intensive, so actions per minute. You can tank group content potentially more easy if you have a more up-to-date one-hander and a shield. Anyway, so here is what I'm talking about, what I've been referencing. Here's Melderon's Shaman Guide. There's a link to it right there. He has it's a two-part thing. They are fantastic videos. I honestly have never seen another leveling guide that goes this much in depth when it comes to pure numbers and analyzing the different builds. He's a scientist by profession, so his approach was amazing. It was so open-minded. I learned a ton from this video. Definitely, if you are considering playing Shaman, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't check out this video. It's really good. But here are the graphs that I ripped from his video. We're boys, so he didn't mind. But yeah, so he did these tests on a level 55 Tauren Shaman. he was killing 20 hippogriffs at a time, and he was factoring in drinking and all of that, right? So the times you're seeing here are the time it took to kill 20 hippogriffs. So as you can see, Elemental took 9 minutes, 11 seconds. Two-handed slow rockbiter, 10 minutes, 7 seconds. So you may be thinking, okay, Elemental pulled ahead of two-handed slow rockbiter, but this is the thing, he wasn't doing the Earthbind Kiting method. So with the Earthbind Kiting method, where you're literally reducing 33% to potentially 47%, you know, slow two-hander with rockbiter is going to be the way to go. And also that's going to pertain, you know, before level 40, right? Because Elemental really only comes online 40 plus. So as you hear, the hybrid Wind Fury, I should point out. So the third most efficient there actually is with the shield and the dagger. That's not a two-hander. So definitely go watch those videos. So a little more information. Here's some more stuff from his video talking about Shaman weapon buffs, comparing Flame Tongue versus Wind Fury on a fast one-hander. You know, these charts freak me out as much as it probably is freaking you out. But the TLDR is that Wind Fury pulls ahead of Flame Tongue when it comes to one-handers. Also, when it comes to DpME, so that's damage per mana efficiency, it's just, you know, how efficient your spells are, damage to mana. Not how much damage, but the efficiency of each point of mana you're spending, how much damage it's going to produce. So, Lightning Shield is your most efficient mana to damage ability in the game for you as a shaman, right? So even something like Flame Shock, which is really efficient, it's going to do more damage. Flame Shock will do more damage than Lightning Shield, but Lightning Shield will be more pound for pound efficiency when it comes to spending mana and translating that mana into damage. I hope that makes sense, but you can kind of see the different ranks. And another thing I should point out is that when you get the Stormstrike buff, so a 40 plus increasing your nature damage, your Lightning Shield does benefit from that. Sorry, another sip of coffee here. Okay, Ghost Wolf versus 60% mount. Now, this is a pretty nerdy slide, guys, but I think it's valuable. So from level 40 onwards, you're going to have to make this decision, and the decision is going to be whether you decide to mount up or use Ghost Wolf to get to your next objective. Now, what is the breaking point where it's going to be more efficient to ride your mount? That breaking point is 17 seconds. So there's a 3-second cast time before you mount in vanilla, right? You cast for 3 seconds, then you mount up and you're good to go. So if you plan to ride for 14 seconds or longer upon finishing your 3-second mounted cast time, which effectively nets out to 17 seconds, if you plan to ride for 17 seconds or more, then by all means mount up. But 17 seconds is quite a long time, and if you're not going 17 seconds, it may be better, actually, in fact, it is better to use Ghost Wolf. You'll get there faster, it'll be more efficient. There are some other considerations. Ghost Wolf will, you know, stop your spirit-based mana regeneration because it is a spell, and, you know, you're not able to use it while the global cooldown is finishing, but something to keep in mind. So Shaman-specific tips, we're not going to go over all of these. I'll talk about some of the main ones. So the first one is that you want to drop your totems in a way so that you can get value out of multiple targets with them, right? You don't want to keep dropping your totems for every mob you fight. You kind of want to think ahead, think 2 steps ahead, drop your totems in a way that after you kill mob 1, you can kind of pull mob 2 over to your totems. You can pull mob 3 and 4 over to your totems to get more value out of them, right? It's going to be more mana efficient. It's going to be less annoying. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that totems drop in the exact same pattern every time, like around you. They drop in like a square around you. And based on what type of totem it is, it's going to drop in the same location. So the main one that comes to mind is your fire totem. Knowing where your fire totem is going to drop will help you. It'll allow you to squeeze extra kind of range and value out of it. It'll help you in PvE. It'll also help you in PvP. Like if you know how to kind of jump and drop your magma totem, you might be able to, you know, you might be able to clip a rogue out of stealth and get him out of stealth with a magma totem. So just learn and memorize your locations for totems. Let's see. So yeah, use your rank 1 spells. You can use Earth Shock rank 1 as a low mana interrupt, Frost Shock for rank 1 for its on-demand slow, rank 1 magma totem for its for the ability to get people out of stealth and stuff, because it's pretty mana intensive. Fish for clear casting procs. Let's see, out of the totem quests, the water quest is really the most annoying, so you can skip that for like a full 10 levels if you want and come back to it later. Start building out a healing and spirit set early, so keep pieces with high intellect and spirit on them. So you know you can heal whenever you want. You can also swap into the spirit set and reduce that out of combat time, stuff like that. So we're not going to go over all of them. Shaman Tanking. So this is a pretty juicy slide for those of you interested in Shaman Tanking. Shaman Tanking, let me just put a little disclaimer out there, is definitely not my ideal group composition. I'd much rather have like a Druid tank, actually. That'd probably be my Bis while leveling. But you can do it. It's probably best utilized, you know, as a Shaman tank, you're best utilized with a group of friends, like people that you know are competent players. You know, you're really on a slippery slope if you're trying to pug as a Shaman tank. I'd recommend maybe doing guild runs or something like that. You also kind of want to out gear and out level the dungeons that you're attempting, right? So anyway, the disclaimer's out of the way. I'll start it with a quote. Your mitigation will never be as good as a warrior. Your threat can be better. Your utility can be better. And this is a quote from the legendary Totem Tank. I put a link to his guide and Melderon's guide right below. They wrote really good guides on this topic, but I'll try and break it down for you. So if you're going to be a Shaman tank, you basically buff Rockbiter. Rockbiter has a threat component to it, and also Earthshock has a threat component to it as well. It has a 2x threat multiplier, so if you deal 100 damage with Earthshock, you're getting 200 threat out of it. So you're pretty much going to buff up your Rockbiter, buff up your Lightning Shield, make sure you got a couple minutes to spare on your Rockbiter because the fights can drag out a bit. You're going to set up your totems, and then if you're 32 plus, you're going to pull with Chain Lightning, which is an awesome way to pull if you think about it. Chain Lightning as a tank is so good. If you don't have Chain Lightning, you can just pull with Lightning Bolt, and then you're going to use max rank Earthshock on maybe target 2, and then you're going to run up and just club target 3. And then you're going to use Earthshock on cooldown. The Earthshock is going to be the closest thing you have to a taunt, so keep that in mind. Rank 1 Earthshock, you should consider your interrupt. Rank 5 should be considered like your Sunder Armor, and rank 7 should be your taunt, but either way, you should generally always use max rank Earthshock. Refresh your Lightning Shield if it's going to be efficient to do so. Use your Stone Skin and Agility totems as they will further help you with mitigation. But just know, man, like being a Shaman tank, you will be underestimated. You will be subject to a lot of stigma. People will be hating on you, and just go above and beyond to prove that prove that it can be done. Right? You want to reflect positively on the Shaman community. So bring extra consumables. Go the extra 9 yards. You do have pretty decent threat generation with the pull. You have some pretty decent avoidance with parry and the additional dodge, so it can be done, guys. It can be done. There are shamans that have tanked Strathome, and some like Totem Tank. He believes that the only reason why shamans can't tank even raids is because there's a lack of endgame gear to support tanking. Moving on. Life levels 1 through 10. It's pretty quick because you can do both range damage and melee damage. You can start using the Earthbind Kiting method starting at level 6, which is super early. That comes online super early. You have higher than average single target damage. You have healing. You have an early interrupt with Earthshock. That's really good. You know, if you're thinking about those voodoo trolls on the Echo Isles, those things are a freaking nightmare. The fact that you have an interrupt early is really, really good. You want to buy a staff at a vendor ASAP, so keep your staff up to date with the vendor staffs if you need to. If you're starting in Valley of Trials, you should have access to a staff pretty quick with the Val Familiar quest. But just keep your staff updated, because you can't use a two-handed axe or a two-handed mace right off the bat as a shaman. If you don't remember, that's a talent, which we'll get into in a second. So the general flow of combat throughout every stage of the Shaman leveling is pretty much like this. You're going to front load 1 to 2 casted spells, potentially followed by like an instant cast, like a shock. Then you're going to proceed to melee the mob to death. So train all your skills, and then also resist reapplying Lightning Shield when it falls off right away. You may feel a little trigger happy and you want to reapply it, but just know it's going to stop your spirit-based mana regeneration per the 5-second rule. So oftentimes it's going to be better just to kill the mob and then then save your Lightning Shield reapplication when you do intend to spend your mana in a burst as well. So you always want to spend your mana in bursts as a shaman. Moving on. Life 10 to 30, you're going to integrate Searing Totem into your rotation. Searing Totem comes online, and it's good. It's even if you're just against one mob, it's still worth it to drop Searing Totem. And then you would Lightning Shield, drop your Earthbind, Searing Totem, and then you would pull with Flame Shock. If you have the mana to support it, you can even start with a Lightning Bolt into a Flame Shock. Then you're going to melee the mob to death. You get Ghost Wolf, so you can escape with Ghost Wolf at this stage. That's going to be your main bread and butter escape. You're going to drop an Earthbind, go into Ghost Wolf, run out. Also, you're going to get Reincarnation, so buy Onks. Those are the reagents for your Reincarnation spell. It's not going to work without the reagent. 30 to 40, It's pretty similar. You'll have access to Wind Fury weapons. So if you're using a one-handed weapon, use Wind Fury. If you got a two-hander, you can use Rock Biter. 40 to 60. So 40 to 60, you have Stormstrike. So things are going to change a little bit. Stormstrike is pretty mana intensive, so you're going to just have to feel it out at the end of the day. But you may want to consider not using your shocks anymore. I think the priority is to preserve your totems and then shocks. So if you had to cut one or the other, you'd probably want to keep your totems up and remove shocks from your rotation. So you're going to put Lightning Shield on, put your totems down, and then you're going to run up, and you're going to run up and melee the mob, followed by a Stormstrike, and then just kind of Stormstrike on cooldown. Or you can, if you can support it, then you can throw in the shock there as well. But that's the only other thing. Okay, so we're going to talk about talent builds now. So the first talent build I'm going to present to you is a two-handed Stormstrike Enhance Elemental build. Now, this is what I personally believe to be the fastest way to 60. If you have the time, energy, resolve, you're really, for whatever reason, maybe you hate leveling, you want to get to 60 as soon as possible, this is the build that I recommend you going. So the first assumption we have here is that from 10 to 20, the early talents in enhancement are going to do very little for you. You're going to be using a two-hander, so the improved shield spec is not going to do anything for you. And then the 5% mana, excuse me, the 5% mana that you get through the other one is very lackluster. It feels so bad, man, putting 5 talent points into that for 5% mana. That's not even one spell. So Elemental offers you much better value in the early stages from 10 to 20. So from 10 to 20, we're going to put points into the Elemental tree, going down to clear casting, and then at 20, we're going to respec back to enhancement to get improved Ghost Wolf. So we're gonna go over to the talent calculator now, and I'll walk you through the order of operations. So you are level 10 and you are ready to invest those juicy talent points. I'm gonna walk you through 10 to 20 and then the respec and then all that good stuff. So we're gonna start off with 5 points into convection, the assumption being that 10% reduction in mana cost will be more advantageous than a 5% damage increase. Then we're going to move into 3 out of 3 Call of Flame, increasing damage done by your fire totems by 15%. 15% damage increase is pretty nice on your Searing Totem. Then we're going to go 2 points into Earth's Grasp. So early on, Stoneclaw Totem, that's your little taunt totem thing, is pretty good. It can save your life. So increasing its health by a whopping 50% is nothing to scoff at. And then increasing the radius of your Earthbind Totem just makes it a little bit easier to Earthbind Kite, so it's not bad. Then Elemental Focus, getting clear casting at 20. Then you're going to respec at 20 back to enhancement. So this is what that's going to look like. 5 into Shield Specialization. It just feels so bad going into Ancestral Knowledge. Like this talent is just so underwhelming that I just refuse to take it. And I think that Shield Specialization, even when you're going for pure speed, will still be better because you're going to be able to tank group content. You can have that on-demand tankiness for you. So 5 points into Shield Specialization, followed by 5 points into Thundering Strikes. Then your 20th point, because you're respecing at 20, is going to be Improved Ghost Wolf. So I will show you how to proceed through the talent tree. At this point, you're going to put 1 more point into improved Ghost Wolf, reducing the cast time of Ghost Wolf spell by 2 seconds, so that's effectively making it a 1-second cast. Then at this point, you can go right into Anticipation, or if you're going to have access to two-handed axes and maces pretty soon, which you should, I would recommend going right into two-handed axes and maces. But for whatever reason, if you don't have access to it right away, maybe your weapon progression is not going to factor this in for a few levels, then definitely hop right into Anticipation. So then we're going to put 2 points into Anticipation, increasing your chance to dodge by 2%. We're going to move into Flurry, 5 out of 5. We're going to move into Parry. Parry is a phenomenal talent. Every mob and player in the game has just a base 5% chance to parry and dodge and stuff like that. So it's basically 1 point for 5% avoidance. You're also going to get the damage increase through parry hasted attacks. So then we're going to go 1, 2, 3 into elemental weapons. Then we're going to go back to Anticipation, putting 1 more point into Anticipation. We're going to open up Weapon Mastery, 5 out of 5, and then we're going to go into Stormstrike. So the only real talking point here is the points in Anticipation versus Improved Lightning Shield. And I actually did some brief calculations on and looking at what a 15% damage increase is going to do for you on Lightning Shield, and it's not that much. And I would rather have the avoidance with 3% dodge. It's going to make you that much tankier if you do decide to do some group content and tank. This is going to help you. Also, I just do think you're going to get better value of missing a full attack against you as opposed to getting slightly more damage with Lightning Shield. And at like various ranks, I think I looked at like rank 4 and rank 5, you're getting like 30 damage extra from a full Lightning Shield with all the different procs. So 3 points into this didn't seem as good, but it does feel bad, man, and this is probably the one flexible point. You can decide to go Lightning Shield instead of Anticipation, but if you do decide to do group content and attempt to tank and stuff, then Anticipation is a clear winner in my mind. Okay, so we finished Enhancement. Now we're going to move back into Elemental. So we're going to follow that similar path that we did before. 5 points into Convection, 3 points into Call of Flame. Now you can do Earth's Grasp, or you can do Elemental Warding or Concussion. It's kind of up to you in this slot. But you know, if you were to put a few points into this, it's not that bad. Honestly, Elemental Warding is not bad. But personally, I like Earth's Grasp. Just getting the increased radius and Earthbind Totem is my personal preference. Then Elemental Focus to get that clear casting. Now at this point, it may seem kind of juicy to go into Call of Thunder, increasing the critical strike chance of your Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning spells by an additional 1%, but you got to realize that you're not casting these really as enhancement. You're just not casting Lightning Bolt. If you look at the rotations, you're putting your totems down, you're flame shocking, so this is kind of a non-factor. So then you look at Concussion. This increases the damage done by your Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, and Shock spells. So you would get some value with your shocks, a little bit extra damage, but it still does kind of feel bad. So for me, I think Reverberation is going to be better. Reverberation reduces the cooldown when fully ranked of your shocks by 1 second. Now this could be good for utility, for PvP, for tanking, that you have your Earth Shock up a little bit sooner. So that's why I like Reverberation, but you can potentially go into Concussion if you want. So 4 points into this will open up Elemental Devastation. Elemental Devastation is phenomenal with an enhancement. It basically makes your offensive spell crits your offensive spell crits will increase your chance to get a critical strike with melee attacks by 9%. So 9% in addition to the Thundering Strikes. So good. Being able to proc Flurry. Really, really good stuff. So after an Elemental Devastation, we're going to go back up. We're going to finish Reverberation, and we're going to put the last point into Elemental Warding, reducing damage taken from Fire, Frost, and Nature effects by 4%. So that is the first build. Alright, so the next build is going to be Elemental Resto. So to use this build, you're going to go Enhancement, like the same build we did before, right? But then at 40, you're going to respec to Elemental, and then you're going to proceed into the Resto tree after that. So like I said before, this is going to actually be your highest single target kill speed, and it's actually going to be very efficient as well. But you can't use Earthbind Kiting with this, so you're going to have to face tank a lot more damage. So I will walk you through this. That's a little sample of the single target rotation. You're pretty much going to spam Lightning Bolts. And then when you get a clear casting proc, that's when you're going to use Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning deals more damage than Lightning Bolt, but it costs a lot of mana. So you're going to Lightning Bolt, so you're gonna, and then once the mob gets to you, right? So the mob gets to you, you're gonna do a /sit macro. That's gonna proc Eye of the Storm, and it's gonna give you basically 100% resistance to pushback, so you can just freely cast in its face and proceed to just kill it with Lightning Bolts. That's gonna be your whole rotation. So we're gonna pop into the talent calculator now. So this is what it's going to look like at 40. We're going to go 5 out of 5 Convection. We're going to go 5 out of 5 Concussion. We're going to go Call of Flame. We're going to use Elemental Focus, Call of Thunder, 3 into Eye of the Storm, 1 into Elemental Fury, 2 into Storm Reach, 5 into Lightning Mastery, and then 1 into Elemental Mastery. So this is what it's going to look like at 40. So some of the key things you want to keep in mind is this Lightning Mastery is reducing the cast time of your Lightning Bolt by 1 whole second. This is so good. Elemental Mastery, you're going to use this on cooldown. When activated, it's going to give your next Fire, Frost, or Nature damage spell a 100% chance to critical strike, and reduces the mana cost by 100. So using that with Chain Lightning on cooldown is going to be important. So then you're going to proceed into the Restoration tree at this point. You're going to go Tidal Focus, reducing the mana cost of healing spells by 5. Totemic Focus, reducing the mana cost of totems by 25%. This is such good talent. Then Totemic Mastery. So here's your first real point of contention. You can either... There is an argument where getting your more hit with spells is going to be more important than Totemic Mastery. I'd tend to agree with that if you're just out in the open world, like trying to level as fast as possible. But in my view, if you're taking this build, you're not as concerned with speed leveling, right? So Totemic Mastery is going to be better here, I think. 1 point to increase the radius of your totems that affect friendly targets, increasing it out to 30 yards. Is really, really big, and then getting the hit points after. So then you put 3 out of 3 into Nature's Guidance there. Now you have 1 point, kind of throwaway point, where you can put it in any of these 4. The thing that's going to move the needle the most, I think, is improved reincarnation. This is going to reduce the cooldown of your reincarnation spell by 10 minutes and increase the amount of health and mana you reincarnate with by an additional 10%. So that's going to help you in groups and potentially allow you to wait out your reincarnation spell, so you have more like wipe resistance. Just improving the healing wave. You don't really need this, and this to me is going to be the best here. So then we're going to go 5 into title mastery, and you're done. This third and final build I'm going to share with you guys, I'm pretty excited to share. It's going to be for people who don't feel like doing the Earthbind Kiting. They just don't want to expend that extra brain power and APM to deal with that. They just want to level somewhat in a chill way. They also enjoy the one-hander shield style of gameplay a bit more. And this spec is also going to be damn near optimized for tanking if you do want to give that a shot. So it's going to be enhancement moving into Resto secondarily. We're going to be skipping over points like Stormstrike and two-handed weapons. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So let's jump into the talent calculator now. So we're going to start off with 5 points into shield specialization, followed by, weirdly enough, 2 out of 2 guardian totems. Now, I might add that this build will allow you to tank better than any other build early on if you want to do some of those early dungeons and give that a shot. You're going to get 2 out of 2 Guardian Totems right at level 16, and that's right when you get rank 2 Stone Skin Totem, so it's a little bit of a power spike as far as mitigation. Then we're going to go 3 into Thundering Strikes, followed by 2 into Improved Ghost Wolf. And then we're going to finish off Thundering Strikes. We're going to drop 1 into Anticipation. We're going to drop 5 into Flurry. We're going to go drop 1 into Parry, 3 into Elemental Weapons. We're going to put 1 more into Anticipation, and then we're going to finish off Weapon Mastery 5 out of 5. At this point, we're going to transition over into the Restoration tree. We're going to drop 5 into Tidal Focus, followed by 5 into Totemic Focus. Then we're going to put 1 into Totemic Mastery, 3 into Nature's Guidance, and now we are done with Restoration. Now at this point, we're going to go back and finish off Anticipation, 5 out of 5, and we're going to put 3 into Improved Lightning Shield. Now that is going to be it. You have 1 point left, but it's going to be inconsequential because you'll be respecking at 60 regardless. So moving on, let's talk about leveling stat priority. What stats are you looking for on your gear as you level? So let's first talk about what the different stats do for you. Stamina, Intellect, and Spirit are pretty streamlined across all the classes. Stamina is going to increase your health by 10 per point, Intellect's going to increase your mana by 15 per point, and Spirit's going to boost your out-of-combat health and mana regeneration rates. Strength for a Shaman is going to increase AP by 2 per point, and Agility is going to increase ranged AP by 1 per point, as well as improving your chance to crit and dodge. So before we get into it, let me read this little passage for you. While stacking strength at first glance might seem better than agility, at low levels the AP gained from stats doesn't translate very well into faster kill speeds. The attack power curve is linear, requiring substantial amounts of AP to go from, let's say, 12 hits to kill a mob to 11 hits. At least by stacking crit, you can sometimes get lucky and get occasional high-tempo burst damage. Agility also improves your avoidance through dodge. Now, this is something I've picked up, and this is my general feeling at this stage. This applies to warriors, it applies to feral druids, it applies to shamans, that stacking agility, while it doesn't directly improve your attack power, it can help some of your talents, and it can also give you additional avoidance through dodge. And you have this kind of stair-step power curve when you're killing mobs, right? The linear power curve doesn't translate very well because you need certain critical thresholds to go from 12 hits to kill a mob to 11. So you would rather favor that occasional high tempo burst damage. And the thing is, you have Flurry as a shaman too, right? So you want to proc Flurry. You want to proc Flurry as much as possible. So agility is going to directly benefit your talents and overall just bring your spec to life a bit more. So that's the stat priority. Agility, strength, stamina. Stamina sort of you have to find a good balance between stamina and intellect, and then spirit is the lowest, but you should still keep spirit pieces. If you find pieces with high amounts of spirit on them, like these ones listed here, just keep them. You can toggle into them with Outfitter, boost your out-of-combat regeneration rate. Also, it's good for healing sets, stuff like that. So that's leveling stat priority. Here's a little first aid slide, and then here are some slides on weapon progression, two-handed weapon progression, and then we also got dagger progression. We also got one-handed axe progression. I know I'm going fast, but there is a link to the presentation down below, and also in the description and in the comments. So if you want to take a look at that stuff, just definitely go to the presentation. This document is a living document. Take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. This is just the best attempt that I got at this stage. Let's all put comments on these PowerPoints. Let's try and improve these as a resource for the Shaman community. If you have any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, hit me up in the Discord. I'm pretty much always available there. If I don't have an answer for you, I can probably get in contact with someone who does have an answer for you. Come be part of the community. Come share your thoughts. I'd really appreciate it. But thank you so much for your time again today, guys. This guide took a while to make. We only got one left. We got Priest left, and we'll be done with all the classes and right in time for the classic demo. So thanks again, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.